In the news, we're always fixated on the president and Congress, and here in New York, Albany. But so much of the decision-making that affects life around us takes place in your town or village hall, in your county seat. What if we were paying as much attention to those meetings, had as many journalists there as we do at the White House? Well, maybe that's not going to happen. But the point is, we should all be paying more attention to local politics. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Pearsall Wealth Management at UBS Wealth Management USA, subsidiary UBS AG, member FINRA SIPC, 1 Broad Street Plaza, Glens Falls. And the New York State Caregiving and Respite Coalition, seeking volunteers aged 55 plus to support family caregivers in northern and central New York. Visit nyscrc.org/AmeriCorps.
Hello, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, March 10th. First up, the statewide strike that has plagued prisons for 3 weeks may finally be over. The state and the union that represents corrections officers struck a deal on Saturday. Many officers began returning to work this morning, including COs at Clinton Correctional and Dannemora. For the deal to go into effect, at least 85% of officers must return to work today. It's still unclear if that threshold has been met. The deal suspends parts of the HALT Act, which limits the use of solitary confinement. It also creates a committee to review the effectiveness of solitary confinement. Many advocacy groups have criticized the proposed suspension of the HALT Act. The town of Long Lake could earn more than $100 million from the sale of a massive property in the Adirondacks. The Whitney estate named the town as the sole beneficiary of the expected sale of its 36,000-acre property. Emily Russell has details.
The news broke on Saturday morning. Long Lake would earn any proceeds from the expected sale of Whitney Park, a 36,000-acre property just west of the town. The land was owned by Mary Lou Whitney, who died in 2019 and left it to her third husband, John Hendrickson. The property includes a great camp along with 22 ponds and more than 100 miles of shoreline. It's one of the largest privately owned tracts of land in the Adirondacks. A year after Whitney's death, Hendrickson listed the property for sale for $180 million. Long Lake Town Supervisor Clay Arsenault approached Hendrickson about giving recreational easements to the town. He declined, but Arsenault told WRGB what Hendrickson said next.
If something were to happen to me, the town will be much better off than they are now. And I said, well, what do you mean by that, John? He said, you'll see.
Hendrickson died last summer after suffering a heart attack. He was 59 years old. Then, about a week ago, Long Lake learned that it was the sole beneficiary of the expected sale of Whitney Park. Arsenault told WRGB that it will be a transformational gift for the small town of about 600 people.
It's a very small, tight-knit community who sticks together through thick and thin. And I think John and Mary Lou wanted to see the town be successful for generations.
It's unclear how many interested buyers Whitney Park has attracted since it was first listed 5 years ago. The town says it's still on the market for more than $100 million. Environmentalists had urged New York State to protect the 36,000-acre property, though John Hendrickson rejected that idea. He was pretty critical of how the state had managed the forest preserve. It could take years for Whitney Park to find a buyer and for the net proceeds to be transferred to the town of Long Lake. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio.
An American bobsled athlete took home gold over the weekend in Lake Placid. Keisha Love became a world champion in monobob on Sunday, a bobsledding event with just one racer. Love beat out a German by less than half a second in an event broadcast on international TV.
Monobob racing's going to be close. Here she comes. Here it comes.
The American Alana Myers-Taylor earned a bronze medal in monobob. Lake Placid is currently hosting the biggest international event of the bobsled and skeleton season. There were races all last weekend, and they'll continue this coming weekend at the Mount Van Hoevenberg Olympic Center in Lake Placid. Local governments make some of the biggest impacts on our day-to-day lives. Their decisions affect our roads, our environment, schools, taxes. This year, St. Lawrence Valley reporter Catherine Wheeler is going to explore the ins and outs of one county government, St. Lawrence County. Here's Catherine's first story.
Typically, there's not much competition for a seat at St. Lawrence County's Board of Legislators meetings. So as I walk into the county courthouse for one of the first meetings of the year back in January, I'm a little surprised to bump into a small group of people, including John Casserly of Canton. He tells me he and a few fellow members of the St. Lawrence County Democrats are here for the meeting too.
We made a New Year's resolution in the committee that we were going to attempt to come to the majority of the legislative meetings.
That's ironic, because I've sort of made the same resolution. This year, I'm focusing some of my reporting on St. Lawrence County government, all the ins and outs, the meetings, the decisions, the people and departments that make up the government, and how citizens can get more involved. Julie Parkman says she wanted to start going to meetings regularly to counteract how disheartened she is with the country's political climate.
There's such a great divide between Republicans and Democrats, so maybe meeting people where they're at and how we all have the same goal in the place that we live here might help with communication and understanding each other, and hopefully maybe find other people interested who may want to run and participate too.
That's something local politicians are hoping for. At the first legislative meeting of the year, Board Chair David Forsyth urged more people to get involved.
Many people sit there and they'll act as Monday quarterbacks, and they'll throw stones, and they'll say this or they'll say that. And the first thing I say is step up and do it. Don't stand on the sidelines, get in the game, and run for chair, run for legislator, run for something, run for town board.
In the last general election, the majority of local races in the North Country were uncontested. People aren't getting involved in politics, even at the entry level. Some think that partially stems from our polarized political landscape. I asked Forsyth about that.
I think people watch television, they watch the disconnect, they watch the fighting amongst parties, and it kind of puts a black eye on it, I guess I would say. But I think once you get involved, when people do these things for the right reasons to make a difference, I think that's what matters the most.
Forsyth says getting involved in local government doesn't mean you have to run for office. You can apply for an appointment to an advisory board based on your interest or expertise, or attend meetings and make public comments. But few people do, and it's been that way for a while. That's according to Peter Fitzrandolph. He was a St. Lawrence County legislator from 1993 to 2010. Fitzrandolph says in the past, the community was more likely informed about what was happening because of local journalism.
In the early part of my tenure on the board, there was very detailed, very professional press coverage, both in the print media and through local television.
Fitzrandolph says reporters were following the issues week by week, and that kept people up to date. But over time, local news in the North Country has shrunk as the whole industry struggles to survive in rural communities. Fitzrandolph says we have to resist apathy because local government is the place where individuals have the most impact.
I think very few of us have any real say at this point other than our vote for president or the Senate or the House of Representatives about national policy, for example. But at the local level, it's a place where I think people's voices can really make a difference. And I think it's really important for people to get educated and express their opinions about local matters.
Julie Parkman agrees. She says attending county legislature meetings has been illuminating. She's seen how lawmakers are working through problems.
We're all trying to live in this county as productively as possible, and we need to stand and support each other and understand it. It's just too easy to point fingers and blame people, but having context really helps.
She says participation is a critical component of the democratic process, and it's worth the extra effort.
When complacency happens or I'm too tired to do this and show up, that's when democracy can slip.
You can find the Board of Legislators meetings on the St. Lawrence County website. That includes the agendas and the recordings to play back. I'm following along all year, so send in your questions about local government in St. Lawrence County, ideas and tips to Catherine at ncpr.org. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio in Canton.
We'd really love for you to help shape the series on local government. What are your questions? What are your story ideas? Email Catherine with a C, Catherine@ncpr.org. Music today by I Am Snow Angel of Lake Placid and Oscar Sarmiento of Potsdam. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.